Hi, I'm Karas Wright, and welcome to the Karas Wright Show. You're going to notice something a little different today. I am by myself, and there's a reason for that. Last week, I had a great conversation with a fellow coach and consultant, Mervyn Bryce, and we had a phenomenal conversation about the intersection of coaching and consulting and what's the difference. But what I recognized in that conversation is that we didn't do a fantastic job of helping you choose, what do I need? Do I need a coach? Do I need a consultant? Maybe I need a mentor or a strategic advisor. And what the heck are all of these things in this vast array of support that I can have for myself as a business owner? So today we're going to break down exactly that. What is a coach? What is a consultant? What is a mentor? And what is a strategic advisor? What are the key indicators that I need that person? And actually, how do they work? And how are they going to help my business? So if this is interesting to you, stick around. So I want to illustrate what I mean by coach, consultant, mentor through sharing an experience that I have had over the past couple of months with 3 different business owners, very different capacities. So bear with me here as I take you through a little bit of the inner workings of what I do with Right Step. There are 3 different business owners with 3 different stages. But when I look at what they all have in common, there's one common denominator. They can't sleep. They are paralyzed by decisions. They're running on anxiety, exhaustion, and far too much coffee for anyone's liking. Same symptoms, different root causes, and that difference actually determines how and what they need in terms of support. So example, first founder. This is someone who has all the information, they have a great team, but they can't decide exactly what they want. Every decision feels huge. It's monumental because they're not anchored in their own vision. They're taking in information from all different sources and potentially seeking consensus instead of, this is how I want to move our business forward. Now, that person's gap is clarity. They don't need to find all of the answers from the outside. They need to take that information in, disseminate it, and then choose what they want to create the vision. The second founder knows exactly what needs to happen, but doesn't trust themselves inside. They're second guessing every tough conversation, every decision, every single bold move. Their gap? Well, it actually is confidence. They actually need someone to say, hey, I've been through this. Here's what I've experienced. Here's what I've learned. Maybe this will help to help guide them through the way. And then a little bit of cheerleading to say, hey, you're doing the hard thing. Great job. And then the third founder is clear on their vision and they're confident in their direction, but they don't actually know how to build it. What they're missing is actual systems and skills to be able to execute. Her gap is competency. What they need is to have somebody help them come in and build it with them or garner up the confidence to be able to do so in a different way. Now, that's actually a consulting client. Same situation. They're all experiencing sleepless nights, but 3 different solutions. The difference was actually in knowing where their gap lives and how to actually support them. So what does all of this mean for you? Well, let's break it down next. So I want you to listen for the different indicators that might match your situation, what you're actually living in as a founder, as a leader, that matches what gaps you're experiencing. A coach works with you, not for you. They ask more questions than they actually give answers. Their focus is on unlocking clarity, helping you identify your mindset gaps, and your decision making. If you're stuck in your own head, you may need a coach. Now, their anchor question is, what do you think you should do? In contrast, a consultant, this is someone who is hired for a specific problem with a specific deliverable. They bring their expertise, and quite often they do the work for you. Their focus is on helping you define the gap. Often it may be in marketing, operations, finance, or even systems. If you need an answer and potentially a process built, that is where a consultant lives. Their anchor question is, what is the problem and what does solving that problem actually look like? Then there's the mentor. This is a relationship-based connection. It's usually informal. They share their lived experience from a similar journey. Their focus is more on perspective, pattern recognition, and encouragement when you're maybe feeling a little shaky. If you're navigating unknown territory and you need a trusted advisor, that's likely a mentor. Their anchor question is, here's what I went through. Does any of this apply in your situation? And then finally, an advisor or a strategist. Now, this is a strategic relationship. It's often an equity exchange, maybe a retainer or a board seat. They bring a network, they bring their credibility, they bring macro pattern recognitions. They're seeing the big picture and they're helping you see it as well. Their focus is positioning, relationships, and big decisions. If you need doors that are opened or your blind spots challenged at a strategic level, not an individual level, at a macro level, that's where an advisor lives. Their anchor question is, here's where I see this heading, and here's how I would position it. They're being a guide. So that's the map. And I want to tie this back into those three founders that I was working with, because I think it's really important to, put it in real sense. Now, that clarity gap, that coach, that's the person who's going to help ask those questions on a micro level. From the confidence gap, that often is a mentor. The skills and competency gap, that's going to be often a consultant. Nervous system dysregulation or decision fatigue, you're going to need a coach and potentially marry that with a somatic informed practitioner. Relationship and trust gap with your team, you may need a combination of a coach and potentially an organizational consultant. You have a strategic positioning gap, that is an advisor. Now, I want to state something a little bit different, and that is the role follows the gap that you're experiencing as a business owner, not the other way around. Most people pick the role first. I need a coach, I need a consultant, I need a mentor, and hope that it covers the gap. And that actually leads to an incredible amount of frustration if you get it wrong. If you happen to get it right, great. So here's the nuance that most content actually skips. And I really want to address this head on because there's often an role overlap. And that's what Mervyn and I were talking about last week, especially as we get to senior roles and especially as we get individuals who cover more than one area. Great coaches often identify consulting level patterns. A strong advisor quite often mentors. A consultant can feel like a coach because they're asking a lot of questions, and that is okay. The problem actually isn't that the roles get blended. The problem is when you're not aware of what they do and how they interact with you when you hire them. And then all of a sudden things break down because here's what happened. you hire a coach when you actually need some answers and you leave every session frustrated because they're asking you a lot of what questions and what would you do? Or conversely, you hire a consultant when what you actually need is perspective. You spend a lot of money, you get some beautiful outcomes, but you're still stuck mentally. You get a mentor when you actually need someone to hold you accountable. And that can feel good, but then there's no traction in helping you move forward. So that actual cost of misalignment isn't just engagement. There's time that you're lost, there's momentum in your business moving forward, and there's trust that's eroded both in yourself and that specialist that is actually really good at what they do. So what does all of this mean? How do you choose? I want to give you a couple of thoughts. The first thing is, before you look outward to hire someone, I want you to look inward and sit with these questions honestly. Do I actually know what I want? Do I actually know what I want for my business, for my team, for my life over the next 12 months? That helps you create clarity. Do I have the conviction to make the hard calls, or am I looking for somebody else to give me permission to move forward? That's actually a confidence check. Often hits in your gut. Do I actually know what needs to happen, or am I lacking some skills to be able to execute it? That's a competency indicator. And am I indicating that I'm struggling with making decisions from a place of emotional regulation? Or am I making decisions from a place of fear, anxiety, and exhaustion? Well, that's your nervous system chiming in and telling you it needs to be checked. And I have one honest conversation, heartfelt conversation with my team or my clients, or am I actually avoiding them? That's a connection or relationship check. Now, most founders have multiple gaps, and that is absolutely normal. But here's the key. The goal is to identify the one that is actually the blocker. Because if you identify and solve that issue, often the rest of them start following, very similar to a domino effect. So I want to give you 5 tips that you can use before you actually hire. Number 1, I want you to start with what is the actual problem, not with who I want to hire or the role that they play. I want you to write down what the actual problem is. What specifically is not working, and what are you expecting success to look like over the next 90 days? Number 2, ask how they work, not just what they do. A coach, and recognize that a coach asks questions. A consultant tends to diagnose. An advisor assesses fit. And if their style doesn't match your problem, then it's likely the wrong fit and you need to hire somebody different, or you need to have a conversation if they do blend. Number 3, I want you to look at that individual's client roster. Who do they actually work with? Do they work with people at your stage? Is their proof of concept really going to work? And don't get distracted by a fancy bio. Number 4, define the engagement before you start. I want you to think of, from a high level, what's the timeline, the deliverables, and what does success look like to you? Because ambiguity actually tends to be an expensive aspect of relationships, and I don't want you spending more money than you need to. Number 5, I want you to trust the chemistry, but verify the competence. Rapport matters, but I don't want you to get distracted by charisma that replaces capability. Look for references. Ask for their failures, because that's going to tell you how they bounce back, not just their wins. And then I want you to ask them about their process. Ask them, walk me through how you typically work with someone at my stage. What does it look like for the first 30 days? How do you measure if this is working? And what do you do when something isn't working with that client and they're not having progress. I also want you to ask your expert about their experience. Specifically, tell me about a time when something didn't go the way that it was expected with a client. What happened? How did you bounce back? What was the result for the client? And then also ask them who their ideal client is and who it's not so that you can assess fit. Now, I want to talk about fit. Based on what I've shared, where do you think I'm actually stuck? They should be able to help you answer that question. What pushback would you give me? And what's your honest read on whether we are the right fit? Because this is as much about them working with you and making sure it's the right fit for them, as well as the other way around. If they can't answer your pushback questions clearly, or they've never asked you a hard question at the start, that actually tells you something. I now want to address some red flags, and I want you to slow down if you see these and address them, because they may not be aware that they are giving an indication that it is incorrect or may be holding you back from making a decision. If they spend the whole first call selling you something you've never asked about in the situation, or if they're being vague about their outcomes and saying things like, you'll feel more clarity, but there's no measurement to anchor, or if there's pressure to commit fast. Now, I don't want you to mix that up with sometimes there are deliverables or group things that happen on a specific time. That's not what I'm talking about. And then if they are all flash and no substance, they can't give you testimonials. They really just want to show you all the beautiful, perfect things that they do. That can also be a red flag. They also need to have a specialization. Are they a coach that may happen to consult? Are they a consultant that happens to coach? That is a-okay. But if they think that they're filling all 4 gaps in that one relationship, consultant, coach, mentor, and advisor, that's a red flag. And then finally, I want you to think about assessments. A really serious coach or consultant wants to understand you. They want you to understand that they hear where you're coming from and actually care about how you are hardwired. And assessments actually create a shared language. So I want you to look at that because it can also surface blind spots faster than months of conversation can. They give your consultant coach a baseline to help understand the real you, not the version of you that you're presenting. I want you to look for behavioral assessments like DISC, MBTI, Hogan, or maybe Predictive Index, the strengths-based tools like Clifton Strengths, or a leadership style inventory. If you're leading a team, I highly, highly recommend 360 because it'll give you an indication of not just what your thoughts are, but your supervisor, your peers, and those folks that are working for you. Don't just take your coach's information for it and their word. I want you to access data. Assessments aren't a formality. They really are a foundation for how the work you're going to do moves forward. Now, I want to be honest about where I fit in all of this because I don't fit into a nice, neat little box. Over the years, I have been an advisor, I have been a mentor, I have been a coach, and I have been a consultant. And honestly, what I've found with most founders is they don't need just one person that fits neatly into one of those boxes. When I'm coaching, I tend to hold up a mirror. And I ask hard questions because I know you draw in that information and you've got the strength within you. I also bring consulting experience because I see tough patterns and I can actually help name what's happening. And I bring advisory thinking from a strategic level with you, but not just worrying about billing the hours. When I work best with founders, it's when I'm building something real and they need a thought partner, not just tactics. Leaders who are ready to actually dig in and do the hard work and are not just talking about it and are not just willing or wishing things to happen. They're ready to engage. People who want somebody who will challenge them and validate them. It's really important to me when I work with somebody for the first time that we set what does that blend look like, and then we check in if something is offside. And I will say, hey, we're shifting over to consulting if this is actually a coaching engagement or vice versa. So there's a lot of words that I said there, and I want to bring us back to where we started with those three incredible founders, not flounders. They had sleepless nights, they had decision fatigue, and they had the same sort of anxiety. That first founder needed to find their own clarity, and we did so through a primarily coaching engagement. Our second founder needed to build up confidence from the ground up, and this is someone I mentored informally. And then the third founder actually needed to build some skills and have somebody help her build the thing with her. That is consulting. The map was completely different, and their right steps forward looked different. And it's going to for you too. I want you to remember that the role follows the gap that you have in your business. You truly do deserve the support that matches your actual problem. The clarity is in knowing which is the gap that you're actually in and what is the one that is plaguing you the most. So, I love a good challenge, and I'm going to throw one out to you this week. One thing. I want you to write down which one of those 5 gaps is your biggest blocker right now. Is it clarity? Is it confidence? Is it competence? Is it your nervous system? Or is it connection, relationships? And that's where you need to start. I don't want you to skip this step. If you are unclear about which gap is blocking you, I want you to head over to my website or in the caption and take the quiz, the right step business reality check. This is an assessment that is specifically designed to help you identify where you are stuck in 7 different dimensions. It helps take the guesswork out of pointing you towards the direction of the right kind of support. Now, if this was helpful and useful in your business and leadership, please share it with another founder who needs to hear it. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Karas Wright Show, or follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook. I'm all over the place, and I really do want to help you. My mission and goal in life is to help founders and business owners feel confident in their business abilities and help them gain clarity in how to do so. I hope this helped bridge the gap in the conversation that I started last week with Merv and Bryce. I encourage you to reach out if you have any questions, put some comments in. I do respond to each one of them, specifically myself. And I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, and please lead with heart. Thank you so much. I am Karas Wright, and this was The Karas Wright Show.